We know the slogan, Honda is the paragon of reliability, but even giants stumble. In their quest for perfection, they built machines that were unrideable and others that literally ate themselves alive. Come with us today as we reveal the 6 absolute embarrassments to the wing badge and the 8 legends that changed history. From the scooter that thought it was a spaceship to the machine that killed the British industry overnight. Put on your red gear. We are starting with the worst. The worst, number 6, the Honda PC 800 Pacific Coast. We kick off our descent into madness with a motorcycle that wasn't dangerous, but it committed a crime against passion. In 1989, Honda decided to build a motorcycle for people who hated motorcycles. They wanted to attract the yuppie car driver who wanted to feel the wind, but didn't want to get grease on their khakis or deal with a chain. So what did they do? They took a perfectly good V-twin engine from the Shadow line and buried it under 300 pounds of Tupperware. They called it the Pacific Coast. It looked like a Honda Accord that had melted in the sun. You couldn't see the engine. You couldn't see the frame. You couldn't see anything mechanical. It was the appliance of the bike world. The entire rear end was a massive trunk that opened like a car boot. While practical, it gave the bike an ass so wide it needed its own zip code. It was marketed as the ultimate commuter, a machine that you could ride in a suit. It rode exactly like it looked, vague. It was heavy, soft, and utterly devoid of feedback. It had a weird vacuum cleaner sound because the engine was so encased in plastic. It was the beige cardigan of motorcycling. If you rode a Pacific Coast, you didn't wave to other bikers. You probably waved at tax accountants. I once met a guy who toured on one, and he told me the best feature was that he could fit 2 bags of groceries in the trunk without them getting squashed. That is a great feature for a minivan, not for a motorcycle. It remains a cult classic today for people who want to be forgotten by history, but as a thrilling machine, it is a plastic coffin for your soul. It represented a time when Honda thought they could sterilize the motorcycle experience, removing all the grit and noise that makes riding fun. But if the Pacific Coast was boring, the next bike was a technological gamble that turned into a nightmare. The worst, number 5, the Honda CX500 Turbo. In the early 80s, everyone went turbo crazy. Manufacturers were slapping turbochargers on everything from hatchbacks to toasters. It was the era of excess. Honda, being Honda, decided to do it better than everyone else.
The Honda CX500 Turbo, a water-cooled, fuel-injected, turbocharged motorcycle.
They took their reliable, if slightly ugly, CX500 plastic maggot V-twin, a pushrod engine originally designed for couriers, and strapped a massive turbocharger to it. On paper, it was genius. It promised the fuel economy of a 500 with the power of a 1000. In reality, it was terrifying. The problem was the lag. You would roll on the throttle at 3,000 RPM. Nothing. You wait a bit more. You check your watch. The bike feels sluggish, heavy, and unresponsive. And then, wham! At 5,000 RPM, the turbo would spool up and hit you with a sledgehammer of power. The boost gauge would spike, and the front wheel would go light. Imagine trying to navigate a wet roundabout in London. You apply a little throttle, nothing happens. You apply a little more to keep moving. Suddenly, the rear tire spins up, the bike goes sideways, and you are staring at the tarmac wondering what went wrong. It was unpredictable. It was also incredibly complex. It had sensors and injectors and plumbing that looked like the back of a washing machine. It was a nightmare to service. When it worked on a long straight highway, it was a rush. When it didn't, it was a heavy, slow, expensive paperweight. Honda proved they could do it, but they never stopped to ask if they should. It remains a cautionary tale about chasing trends without refining the user experience. What is a bike that you would never ride on? Let us know in the comments. The worst, number 4, the Honda NM4 Vultus. Fast forward to 2014. Honda engineers apparently spent a weekend binge-watching Batman movies and the anime Akira and decided to build this. The NM4 Vultus is arguably the strangest motorcycle Honda has ever mass-produced. It was a bold attempt to capture a new demographic, but they missed the mark by a mile. Is it a cruiser? Is it a scooter? Is it a prop from a low-budget sci-fi movie? Nobody knows. It had the feet-forward riding position of a chopper, the floorboards of a touring bike, and the bodywork of a stealth bomber designed by a toddler. The seat was incredibly low, which was great for short riders, but the handlebars were weirdly flat and far away. It forced you into a clamshell riding position that was uncomfortable after 20 minutes. But the real sin was the engine. It looked like it should have a laser cannon or a jet turbine. It looked fast standing still. Instead, it had the parallel twin engine from the NC750, an engine famous for having the personality of a dishwasher. It redlined at 6,000 RPM. It sounded like a lawnmower. It had a dual-clutch transmission that shifted gears for you, removing the last shred of rider engagement. It was a lifestyle bike for a lifestyle that didn't exist. It cost $11,000. For that money, you could buy a real bike. Instead, you bought a plastic bat cycle that got laughed at by everyone, including people on scooters. It sat on showroom floors for years, gathering dust, a testament to what happens when design takes precedence over function. But the Vultus was just weird. The next bike was a betrayal of a legacy. The worst, number 3, the Honda CB360. We go back to the 70s for a bike that broke hearts. The Honda CB350 was a legend. It was reliable, fun, and sold in the millions. It defined a generation of riders. Its successor, the CB360, was supposed to be better. It wasn't. The CB360 is proof that newer isn't always better. Honda rushed this bike into production to compete with Kawasaki's 2-strokes and to deal with a new 6-speed transmission. The engine was under stress, yet somehow unreliable. It had a cam chain tensioner recall almost immediately, something unheard of for Honda at the time. The tensioner would fail, causing the engine to eat itself. But the worst part was the vibration. At highway speeds, the CB360 buzzed so violently that parts would literally fall off. Mirrors would unscrew themselves. License plates would crack from the stress fractures. Your hands would go numb in 10 minutes. I knew a guy who rode one to college, and he had to carry a wrench in his pocket just to tighten the bolts every time he parked. It handled worse than the bike it replaced, felt cheaper, and rode harsher. It is the forgotten middle child of the CB family, a bike that took a step backward in every measurable way. If you find one today, leave it in the barn. It is not the vintage gem you're looking for. But if the CB360 was a mistake, the next bike was pure arrogance on 2 wheels. The worst, number 2, the Honda DN01. In 2008, Honda lost their minds. They released the DN01. They called it a sports cruiser. The press called it the do not own one. This was Honda trying to invent a new category of motorcycle and failing spectacularly. Look at it. It looks like a shark that got stuck in a trash compactor. It was long, low, and bizarre. But the real crime was the transmission. Honda spent millions developing the HFT, human-friendly transmission. It was a hydraulic, mechanical, continuously variable transmission. It was a marvel of engineering, to be fair, but it was heavy, complex, and sapped huge amounts of power. The engine was the weak 680 cubic centimeters V-twin from the Transalp. By the time the power got through that heavy slushbox transmission to the rear wheel, you had about 40 horsepower to move 600 pounds of plastic. It was remarkably slow. It had 0 wind protection because the screen was low and swept back. It had 0 luggage capacity because the rear end was styled to look cool, not to work. And the price? $15,500. Let me repeat that. $15,000. You could buy a Hayabusa and a dirt bike for that money. You could buy a luxury car for that money. Honda sold about 5 of them. It stands as a monument to engineering arrogance, a solution to a problem that nobody had. It was a bike that answered the question nobody asked. What if we made a scooter that costs as much as a Ducati? I have to ask you a serious question. Would you ever ride an automatic motorcycle like the DN01? Or do you need a clutch to feel alive? Tell me your honest thoughts in the comments below. But the worst is yet to come. The #1 worst Honda is a bike that nearly destroyed the company's reputation forever. The worst, #1, the Honda VF750 V45. And here we are, the #1 worst Honda, the bike that nearly destroyed Honda's reputation for reliability forever. This story is a tragedy of epic proportions. In 1982, Honda launched the V4 Revolution, the VF750 Sabre, and Magna. They were high-tech, liquid-cooled V4 monsters that promised to crush the competition. They were faster, smoother, and more advanced than anything Suzuki or Kawasaki had. But there was a problem, a big, catastrophic problem deep inside the cylinder heads. Honda had miscalculated the oil flow to the overhead camshafts. They also machined the cam journals directly into the aluminum head without separate bearings to save money and weight. The result? The camshafts would run DRI, they would overheat, and then they would eat themselves. Mechanics called them chocolate camshafts because they seemed to melt after just a few thousand miles. Riders would hear a ticking noise, then a clattering noise, and then silence. Engines failed left and right. People were stranded on the side of the road. Honda initially denied the problem, blaming owners for improper maintenance or riding too hard. This arrogance infuriated customers who had spent their life savings on these machines. By the time Honda admitted the fault and fixed it, the damage was done. The V4 badge became toxic. Nobody wanted to buy one. It took them a decade of over-engineering to win back trust. The VF750 of the early 80s stands as the biggest engineering failure in the company's history. A beautiful disaster that proved even Honda can bleed. But we cannot leave it there. We cannot define the greatest motorcycle company on earth by their failures. We must look at the triumphs. We are wiping the slate clean. We are scrubbing the oil off the driveway. We are entering the hallowed halls of HRC. These are the 8 machines that define generations, the bikes that are bulletproof, fast, and perfect. The best #8, the Honda RC51. In the late 90s, Ducati was winning everything. Their V-twins were dominating World Superbike. Honda, running their V4 RC45, was getting beaten. Honda got angry. They didn't just get mad, they got vengeful. They decided if we can't beat them with our engine, we will beat them with theirs. They built the RC51, a 1,000 cubic centimeter V-twin designed specifically to kill Ducati. And it worked. It was brutal, it was reliable, and it was built with typical Honda perfection. They gave it gear-driven cams on the SP1. They gave it a chassis so stiff it felt like a granite block. It used massive twin radiators mounted on the sides to keep the engine cool, giving it a distinct, wide look. Colin Edwards took this bike and smashed Ducati at their own game, winning 2 world championships. I remember watching the race at Imola, where Edwards fought Troy Bayliss down to the wire in front of a screaming Italian crowd. The sound of that Honda V-twin thundering out of the corners was the sound of war. On the street, it is a cult legend. It sounds like thunder. It handles like a race bike. And unlike the Ducatis of the time, it started every morning and didn't leak oil on your driveway. It is the bike that proved Honda can build anything better than you can. But while the RC51 was precise, the next bike was a terrifying monster. It is a machine from a time when men were men and traction control didn't exist. The best #7, the Honda CR500. Most Hondas are friendly. This one wants to murder you. The Honda CR500 is the undisputed king of the 2-stroke open class. From 1984 to 2001, this dirt bike was the definition of excess. A 500 cubic centimeters single-cylinder 2-stroke engine. It made nearly 60 horsepower in a chassis that weighed less than your lunch. It didn't have a BS. It had a throttle that acted like a light switch. You hit the power band and the front wheel aimed for the moon. It was violent, It was visceral. It demanded respect. I rode one once in the desert. I tapped the throttle in third gear, and the bike tried to flip over backward. It felt like holding onto a wild animal that was trying to shake you off. If you were lazy, it would throw you off. It is widely considered one of the most reliable two-strokes ever made, famously capable of running desert races like the Baja 1000 without missing a beat. It is a terrifying, vibrating, smoke-belching masterpiece of raw power. Quick pause. If you are loving these legendary machines, do me a huge favor. Check that subscribe button. If you haven't clicked it yet, do it now. We have so many more motorcycle lessons coming your way. The best number 6, the Honda Valkyrie. In the 90s, the cruiser market was boring V-twins. Everyone was trying to copy the Harley-Davidson sound and look. Honda looked at their Goldwing and said, "What if we strip it naked and make it angry?" The Valkyrie is a muscle cruiser powered by a flat-six engine. 6 cylinders, 6 carburetors. It looks like a hot rod engine with handlebars attached. It makes 100 horsepower and massive torque. It is physically imposing, wide and heavy, but it carries itself with a grace that defies physics. But the magic is how it rides. That flat-six engine is smoother than a Rolls-Royce. You can balance a nickel on the tank while revving it. It accelerates with a turbine-like whoosh that embarrasses Harleys. It handles shockingly well for a heavy bike because the weight is carried so low. I remember seeing a guy on a Valkyrie chasing sport bikes through the canyons, dragging his foot pegs and sparking all the way with a giant grin on his face. It is totally unique, totally over the top, and totally Honda. It is a bike that says, we don't need to copy Harley-Davidson. We have 6 cylinders. Cruisers are cool, but what about the holy grail of sport bikes? The best number 5, the Honda RC30. If you are a collector, this is the holy grail. The RC30, or VFR 750R, is arguably the most desirable Japanese motorcycle ever built. It is the bike that every Honda engineer dreams of owning. Built in 1987 for homologation purposes so Honda could race in World Superbike, this was a hand-built exotic. It cost twice as much as a regular sport bike. It featured a V4 engine with a 360-degree crank and gear-driven cams. Listen to an RC30. It doesn't sound like a motorcycle. It sounds like a demonic sewing machine. It sounds like victory. It had a single-sided swing arm, which was designed to allow for quick wheel changes during endurance races. It had titanium connecting rods. It had a slipper clutch, technology that wouldn't reach street bikes for another 15 years. It won the first 2 World Superbike Championships. It is beautiful. The dual round headlights, the deep HRC paint, the white wheels. It represents the absolute pinnacle of Honda's cost is no object engineering philosophy. Riding one today feels like riding a Swiss watch. It is tight, precise, and utterly flawless. It is a piece of history you can ride. But while the RC30 is for the elite, the next bike is for everyone who wants to see the world. The best number 4, the Honda Goldwing. This is a touring bike that handles like a sport bike. I am serious. The aluminum chassis is rigid. The flat-six engine sits so low that the bike flicks into corners with confusing agility. You can scrape the foot pegs while listening to the radio and drinking coffee. It redefined what a heavy bike could do. It proved you didn't have to sacrifice handling for comfort. It is the benchmark for reliability. There are Goldwings with 400,000 miles on them that have never had the engine open. It created an entire culture of long-distance riding. It features reverse gear, airbags, heated seats, and enough luggage capacity for a 2-week vacation. It is the ultimate expression of the Honda promise. It will take you anywhere in total comfort, and it will never, ever let you down. I met a couple who had visited all 48 contiguous states on their Goldwing. They looked fresh, happy, and ready for another lap. That is the power of this machine. I have a challenge for you. Could you handle a 1,000-mile day on a Goldwing, or is that too much riding? Let me know in the comments. But the Goldwing is big, Our next hero is tiny, but it conquered the planet. The best, number 3, the Honda Super Cub. This bike isn't fast, it isn't sexy, but it is the most important vehicle in human history. It is the bike that built Honda. The Honda Super Cub has sold over 100 million units. Think about that. That is more than the Toyota Corolla, more than the VW Beetle. It is the machine that mobilized the world. It put Asia on wheels, it put Europe on wheels. Introduced in 1958, it featured a step-through frame so you could ride it in a skirt or a suit. It had a centrifugal clutch so you didn't need to learn how to use a clutch lever. It was quiet, it was clean, it didn't drip oil. It was the nicest people bike. It changed the image of motorcyclists from outlaws to neighbors. But it is also indestructible. You can throw it off a building, you can run it on cooking oil, you can shoot it, and it will still start on the first kick. I watched a video where they drained the oil and replaced it with frying grease, and the thing still ran for hours. It opened up the world of motorcycling to the masses. Without the Super Cub, Honda as we know it would not exist. It is the humble giant upon which the entire industry stands. Now let's move from the humble Cub to the absolute best Hondas ever produced. These are the monsters that have ruled the motorcycle world for decades. Brace yourself, you're not ready. The best, number 2, the Honda CBR 900R Fireblade. The year was 1992. Sport bikes were fast, but they were fat. They were missiles, but they couldn't turn. They were physically exhausting to ride fast. Then came the Fireblade. Tadao Baba, the project leader, had a radical idea. Light is right. He didn't chase peak horsepower numbers, he chased weight. He built a bike with the power of a liter bike, but the weight of a 600. It weighed just 405 pounds dry. It changed everything. It made every other sport bike look like a dinosaur overnight. It flicked into corners with terrifying speed. It accelerated like it had been shot out of a cannon because it had no mass to hold it back. It had the famous Swiss cheese holes in the fairing to save grams. It used a controversial 16-inch front wheel to make the steering even sharper. I remember the first time I saw one in the Urban Tiger paint scheme. It looked dangerous. It looked like the future. The Fireblade didn't just win comparison tests, it invented the modern superbike. Every Yamaha R1, every Suzuki GSX R1000, every Kawasaki ZX-10R exists because they had to chase the Fireblade. It is the blueprint for modern performance. It proved that handling was just as important as horsepower. Do you like this video? Click that like button, and if you want to support us even more, become a member, have early access to the newest videos. And then finally, the number 1 Honda motorcycle of all time, the Genesis. The best, number 1, the Honda CB750. There can only be one king, the bike that is responsible for the term superbike, the Honda CB750. Before 1969, if you wanted a fast bike, you bought a British twin that leaked oil and vibrated your fillings out, or an Italian bike that never started. Japanese bikes were seen as small, cheap tiddlers. They were seen as toys. Then Honda dropped the bomb. The CB750 had 4 cylinders. It had 4 exhaust pipes. It had an electric starter, something purists scoffed at until they realized how nice it was not to kickstart a bike in the rain. It had a disc brake. It was smooth. It was oil tight. It went 120 miles per hour, and it cost a fraction of a Harley or a Triumph. It killed the British motorcycle industry almost single-handedly. It forced the world to wake up. It proved that a high-performance motorcycle could also be reliable. You could ride it across the country and it wouldn't break down. It is the Genesis, the Alpha. Every inline-4 motorcycle on the road today traces its DNA directly back to this machine. It is the greatest Honda ever made because it is the bike that conquered the world. It changed the perception of what a motorcycle could be, and it set the standard that everyone else is still following today. Click the next video to continue the road trip. Join our tribe by subscribing. And if you want to support our channel and have early access on the newest videos, become a member. And don't forget to like this video.